Unit 25. Relations of reason, result, and purpose. The concepts of reason, result, and purpose cannot be separated because in the same way there is a relationship between reason and result, so there is a relation between purpose on the one hand and result on the other. Those relations are mainly expressed by subordinate adverbial clauses. A subordinate clause is one that depends on a matrix, main clause, in a complex sentence. Subordinate clauses may function as subject, object, complement, or adverbial in a superordinate clause. Subject: that we need a larger computer has become obvious. Direct object: he doesn't know whether to send a gift. Indirect object: you can tell whoever is waiting that I'll be back soon. Subject complement: the result is that the cost will be much higher. Object complement: I know her to be reliable. Adverbial: when you see them, give them my best wishes. They can also function as post modifier in a noun phrase. Few of the immigrants retained the customs that they had brought with them. Prepositional complement: it depends on what we decide. Adjectival complementation: we are happy to see you. On the basis of their potential functions, we distinguish several major categories of subordinate clauses: nominal, adverbial, relative, comparative. The functional classification resembles to some extent that of subclausal units such as noun phrases and adverbs. Nominal clauses have functions that approximate to those of noun phrases: subject, object, complement, appositive, and prepositional complement. Unlike noun phrases, however, nominal clauses may also function as adjective complementation without a preposition. I am not sure that I can remember the exact details. Nominal clauses. The privilege of occurrence of nominal clauses is more limited than that of noun phrases because semantically, the clauses are nominally abstract. It is, they refer to such abstractions as events, facts, dates, and ideas rather than to perceptible objects. Adverbial clauses function mainly as adjuncts or disjuncts. In those functions, they are like other phrases, but in their potentiality for greater explicitness, they are more often like prepositional phrases. We left after the speeches ended. We left after the end of the speeches. We left afterwards. Relative clauses generally function as restrictive or non-restrictive modifiers of noun phrases and are therefore functionally parallel to attributive adjectives, but they are positioned like post-modifying prepositional phrases. Comparative clauses resemble adjectives and adverbs in their modifying functions. He's not as clever a man as I thought. Semantically, the comparative clauses, together with their correlative element more ERS, are equivalent to degree adverbs. For our topic, we are going to deepen into adverbial clauses before getting to study the expression of cause, result, and purpose. The syntactic functions of adverbial clauses are: first, conjuncts. Conjuncts are peripheral to the clause to which they are attached. Only a few adverbial clauses function as conjuncts. They are stereotyped or virtually stereotyped and can be comprehensively listed. What is more, what is most worrying, that is, in between brackets, to say, a number of two infinitive clauses function as listing or summative conjuncts. To begin with, to cap it all, between brackets, informal, to conclude, to continue, All these two infinitive clauses have corresponding ing clauses, but most of them require complementation of the verb. Only a few can be used without complementation. Capping it all, continuing, recapitulating, summing up. Subjuncts. Subjuncts are not generally realized by clauses, the exception being viewpoint subjuncts. Both finite and non-finite participle clauses function as viewpoint subjuncts. The verbs in the clauses constitute a restricted semantic set, principally be concerned and go. As far as the economy is concerned, or goes, the next 6 months are essential. If we look at it from a historical point of view, they have little claim on the territory. Looking at it objectively, or viewed objectively, he is definitely at fault. 3. Adjuncts and disjuncts. Adjuncts and disjuncts tend to differ semantically in that adjuncts denote circumstances of the situation in the matrix clause, whereas disjuncts comment on the style or form of what is said in the matrix clause. Style disjuncts, or on its content or attitudinal disjuncts. The primary difference is that they differ syntactically in that disjuncts are peripheral to the clause to which they are attached. The syntactic difference does not manifest itself in differences in form or position. For example, finite clauses that function as adjuncts and disjuncts may share the same subordinator, and in both functions the clause may be positioned initially or finally. The peripheral status of disjuncts is indicated mainly negatively. They do not allow a number of syntactic processes to apply to them that are allowed by adjuncts, processes that reflect a measure of integration within the superordinate clause. In this section, we consider the differences between adjunct and disjunct clauses. Below, we exemplify the contrast between adjunct clauses in the one sentences and content disjunct clauses in the second sentences. Temporal scenes first and recent scenes second. 1. I have been relaxing since the children went away on holiday. 2. He took his coat since it was raining. Temporal while and confessive while. First, he looked after my dog while I was away. Second, my brother lives in Manchester while my sister lives in Glasgow. Purpose so that and result so that. First, they took a plane so that they could get there early. Second, we know her well so that we can speak to her on your behalf. Conditional if and conditional unless. First, they'll send it to you if you ask them politely. And second, I'll get lost unless I can find my compass. Temporal as and reason as. First, the policeman stopped them as they were about to enter. And second, I went to the bank as I had run out of cash. The syntactic difference between adjunct and content disjunct clauses will be illustrated by two finite clauses, an adjunct because clause and a disjunct since clause. Both are incorporated within the same superordinate clause and both are clauses of reason. He likes them because they are always helpful. He likes them since they are always helpful. Both can be positioned initially, although the adjunct clause is more usual finally. Because they are always helpful, he really likes them. Since they are always helpful, he really likes them. In final position content disjunct clauses tend more commonly than adjunct clauses to be separated from their matrix clauses by intonation or punctuation, though punctuation uses varies. Such separation is particularly common when the subordinator of a disjunct clause is frequently used as the subordinator of an adjunct clause, a condition that applies to reason since and as, confessive while, and result so that. In initial position, all adverbial clauses, regardless of form or function, are separated by intonation and usually by punctuation from their matrix clause. 4. Style disjuncts and content disjuncts. The syntactic differences enumerated in the previous section apply equally to style disjuncts and content disjuncts. Style disjuncts are distinguished semantically in that they generally imply a verb of speaking and the subject I. The style disjuncts implicitly refer to circumstances of the speech act, while the context disjuncts refer to the content of the matrix clause. The style disjuncts are therefore more peripheral to their subordinate clause than are the content disjuncts. Here are some contrasts between either adjuncts, first, and style disjuncts, second. First, since you know Latin, you should be able to translate the inscription. Second, what does the word mean since you are so clever? We exemplify the semantic and syntactic differences by two finite clauses, a content disjunct although clause and a style disjunct since clause. Elizabeth enjoyed last night's concert, although part of the program included Wagner. Second, Elizabeth enjoyed last night's concert since her brother told me so. The concession in first refers to the content of the matrix clause, but the reason in second refers to the speaker's motivation for the assertion. I tell you this since her brother told me so. The more peripheral status of the style disjunct is shown in its greater independence with respect to proforms. Thus, the style disjunct more readily allows the repetition of a noun phrase, whereas the content disjunct normally requires pronoun substitution. Elizabeth enjoyed last night's concert, although the program was not entirely to Elizabeth's. Elizabeth enjoyed last night's concert since Elizabeth's brother told me so, or since her brother told me so. Style disjuncts realized by clause are always separated from the matrix clause by intonation and punctuation. Finally, we will refer to the semantic roles of adverbial clauses. With regard to the semantic roles of adverbial clauses, they can be related to those for adverbial in general and prepositional phrases in particular. For each semantic set, we first discuss finite clauses and then turn to non-finite and verbless clauses introduced by a subordinator or a preposition. We then consider separately non-finite and verbless adverbial clauses that do not begin with a subordinator or preposition. We conclude by distinguishing the verb phrase in those cases where the choice of form is linked to particular types of subordinate clauses. Semantic analysis of adverbial clauses is complicated by the fact that many subordinators introduce clauses with different meaning. For example, a since clause must be temporal or casual. Furthermore, some clauses combine meanings, for example, time with purpose or result. In such cases, we treat the clauses under sections that deal with what appears to be their primary meaning. Now we are going to study reason relationships. We will first distinguish between direct and indirect reason. Direct reason relationship. This is expressed by a direct relationship between the reason clause and the matrix clause. This relationship can be classified according to A. Cause and effect relations. The construction expresses the perception of an inherent objective connection in the real world. For example, the flowers are growing so well because I sprayed them. Or, he is thin because he doesn't eat enough. B. Reason and consequence relations. The construction expresses the speaker's inference of a connection. For example, she watered the flowers because they were dry, or since she is my friend, she must have put in a good word for me. C. Motivation and result relations. The construction expresses the intention of an animate being that has a subsequent result. I water the flowers because my parents told me to do so, or you'll help me because you are my friend. D. Circumstances and consequence relations. The circumstances clause combines reason with condition that is assumed to be fulfilled or about to be fulfilled, the construction expressing a relationship between a premise in the subordinate clause and the conclusion in the matrix clause. For example, since the weather has improved, the game will be held as planned. Or, seeing that it is only 3, we should be able to finish this before we leave today. Second, more peripheral uses of reason clauses express indirect reason relationship. Here, the reason is not related to the situation in the matrix clause, but is a motivation for the implicit speech act of the utterance. Example, Percy is in Washington, for he phoned me from there. Or, as you are in charge, where are the files on the new project? Once we have shown the different shades that reason relationship introduce, we are going to study the different subordinators and structural types of clauses expressing reason. Reason clauses are most commonly introduced by the subordinators before cause and since. Other subordinators are as and in somewhat formal style for. Circumstantial clauses are introduced by the simple subordinators because, since, as, seeing that, as long as, inasmuch as. For example, seeing that it seems as if it will rain soon, we had better leave now. Or, as long as you're here, we might as well talk about your last game. Reviewers, inasmuch as he was not affiliated to any academic institution. Clauses introduced by with may also be circumstantial. With the exams coming next week, I have no time for social life. In that combines reason with point of view and is formal. For example, the evidence is invalid in that it was obtained through illegal means. Or when while introduces a style disjunct, it blends time and reason. While you are in the kitchen, bring me another drink. Clauses without a subordinator may imply the meanings discussed in the section. Knowing their tastes, she was able to bring a gift that they would like. Constructed according to my specifications, the building was able to withstand the earthquake. It is a testimony of the close and obvious connection between reason and temporal sequence that as and since are conjunctions of time as well as of cause. This dual function can give rise to ambiguity. As he was standing near the door, he could hear the conversation in the kitchen, since he was standing near the door or while he was standing near the door. Next, we will deal with the expression of purpose. Clauses of purpose, which are adjuncts, are more often infinitival than finite. For example, to open the carton, pull this tab, or I left early to catch the train. More explicit subordinators of purpose are in order to, so as to. They left the door open in order for me to hear the baby, in order in between brackets. The students should take notes so as to make revision easier, and so as is also between brackets. Finite clause of purpose are introduced by so that, or less commonly and more informally by so, and more formally in order that. The school closes earlier so that the children can get home before dark. The jury were removed from the court in order that they might not hear the arguments of the lawyers. These finite clauses, which are putative, require one of these modal auxiliaries: can, could, may, might, should, would. Negative purpose is expressed in the infinitive clauses by so as not to, or in order not to. Turn the volume down so as not to wake the baby, or I ignored the remark in order not to prolong the dispute. In finite clauses, it is expressed by in order that, dots, not, but also by specific subordinators, for fear that, in case lest. They left early for fear that they would meet him. They evaluated the villain in case the wall collapsed. For fear that conveys also the meaning of apprehension and requires a modal auxiliary, but in case need not have a modal auxiliary. Archaic lest tend to have a modal auxiliary or a present subjunctive. Finally, we will refer to the expression of result. Clauses of result are introduced by the subordinators so that these clauses overlap with those of purpose both in meaning and in subordinators. The chief semantic difference is that result clauses are factual rather than putative. Both express result, but in the result clause, the result is achieved, whereas in the purpose clause, it is yet to be achieved. It is a desired or aimed at result. Hence, finite clauses of result do not require a modal auxiliary. For example, we paid him immediately so that he left contented. That's a result. Or we paid him immediately so that he will leave contented, and that's a purpose. As we see from these examples, so that express both purpose and result, but so that is more commonly used for purpose and so for result. When that is omitted in the result clause, the conjunction so is indistinguishable from the conjunct so in asynthetic coordination. If and is inserted, so is unambiguously the conjunct. We paid him immediately, and so he left contented. Result clauses differ syntactically from purpose clauses in that result clauses are disjuncts, whereas purpose clauses are adjuncts. Furthermore, result clauses can only appear finally. Unlike the purpose clause, the result clause introduced by so that is separated by comma punctuation. The result relation is the converse of that of motivation. Consider the following sentence. I took no notice of him, so he flew into a rage. Its meaning can be expressed by revising the matrix and subordinate clauses and using a conjunction such as because. He flew into a rage because I took no notice of him. That may introduce a final clause with resultative meaning in interrogative sentences. What have I done that you should insult me? In one type of comparative clause, the clause expresses result. This type has the correlatives so, dots, that, or such, dots, that, in which so, that are intensifiers. Her parents gave her so many toys that she couldn't possibly play with them all. She is such a good lecturer that all her courses are full. Concluding, we have presented a general overview of the different devices that the English language provides to express such relations as reason, result, and purpose. Moreover, we have also tried to make several distinctions and other meanings that might be attached to their expression, and other resources which are different from them. Probably this is one of the key points in language, since in our actions and in our use of language there is often a reason, a purpose, and a result, and therefore the speaker of the English language must be able to express them either through written or spoken language, choosing properly informal and formal expressions for each situation. Bibliography. Carter McCarthy, 2006, Cambridge Grammar of English, a comprehensive guide, spoken and written English grammar and usage. Crystal D., 2004, The Cambridge Encyclopedia of the English Language. Downing, A. and Locke, 2006, English Grammar, a University Course. Routledge. Jespersen, 2013, Essential of English Grammar, Routledge. Murphy, 2012, English Grammar in Use. Quirk, 2010, A Comprehensive Grammar of the English Language, Pearson Education. Swan, 2005, Practical English Usage, Oxford University